Hey guys, thanks for joining us here for Cage Side Convos, episode number 16. We're coming to you live from American Top Team in Watertown. I am Rick Huntsman.
And what's up? This is Quince.
So Quince, thank you for joining me as always here this week.
Hey, I appreciate you having me.
So a very subtle way for us to kick off this topic that we're going to touch on this week about gratitude. So understanding gratitude, how to express gratitude, and just kind of the myriad different things that it really affects in your life when you start cultivating a gracious mindset.
Sure.
And where I kind of find myself in life right now is very steeped in gratitude for really everything I have. And what's interesting to me is the first kind of thing that popped up in my mind was this notion of recognizing gratitude without paranoia. So kind of this mindset of I found myself before in life thinking, well, oh man, things are good, but I don't want to say anything about it right now because I don't want to jinx it. Because as soon as I say something, shit falls apart, you know, which I think was simply a byproduct of my negative mindset about it. You know, I feel like I'm going to jinx it, and then I do. You know, whether it be a relationship, whether it be something at work, you know, whatever the circumstance may be. I always was nervous, you know. So a couple weeks ago, I found that I just really recognized how easy life was right now. You know, my relationship's going great, the gym's going great. Every week, you know, you and I are sitting down, doing our conversations. You know, my house is taken care of. My bills are paid. I have enough money for food. You know, car's running fairly well. It starts every morning. You know, it's just all of these things, and really just finding myself in a very easy and a very comfortable place in life. And my knee-jerk reaction was to say, well, shit, don't say anything about that because then you know, something's gonna fuck up, right?
Right.
But I realized in that moment, as soon as I thought that being paranoid about it kind of disconnects you from the situation and detaches you from what's really going on. But actively saying, I'm grateful for this. I'm thankful to the universe for aligning in such a way. I'm grateful for everybody in my life. Really made me every single day wake up and recognize it and be very, very connected to what is going on and to really feel genuinely happy and genuinely grateful for everything that's going on.
Sure.
Which, as I kind of dove deeper into it, I recognized as a pattern of gratitude that something that had been practiced.
Yeah.
Kind of over the past, I guess, several months or so.
Sure.
You know,
because like we were saying, it's almost like a muscle that needs to be trained.
Yeah.
And learned and understood how to use.
Right.
And what's interesting about that saying, which I think is like an age-old saying. I've heard so many people say that. I've even said it myself. Or you'll get some people that knock on wood about it.
Yeah.
But that thought pattern is very contradictory to how you got in that position to begin with.
Yes.
And the truth is, like, life, bad shit will happen.
Right.
Bad things will happen, but being stuck in that mentality where you're like, don't speak on the good because it'll bring something bad.
Right.
And I think that's easy to think that is a truism because bad shit happens sometimes.
Sure.
But that's why I think it's so important that, because like I was saying before, we're not defined by what happens to us.
Right.
We're defined by how we respond to it.
Sure.
And that's a conscious choice every single time, to define something as a blessing or a burden.
Right.
So being able to break that wall down, is because it's easy. It's so easy when good things are happening to be grateful, But it's when they, when those obstacles start falling in your way or that hurt or something negative happens, can you now go back, remember what being grateful for something good was?
Right.
Felt like.
Right.
Can you use that same mentality to find the best in that negative situation?
Right. I think something that, and this is kind of the first time it's really hit my mind in this fashion. So you said the mind is a muscle and it needs to be exercised.
Sure.
Now, the mind isn't made up of a singular part. If you sit there and say, I'm going to exercise my mind, well, how? Are you going to read? Are you going to practice math? Are you going to think logically on a situation? Are you going to practice gratitude? Are you going to practice happiness? Are you going to practice vulnerability? So in the mind, there's all these subsets. There's these very specific groups, right? So if you compare that to your body, when you go to the gym, you don't just lift, right? Anybody who puts any amount of time into lifting knows it's beneficial to exercise isolated muscle groups too,
Right,
you know? So when you're feeling gracious, you know, it's similar to, you know, say you've been working out consistently and you look in the mirror one day, you're like, oh shit, man, my biceps are pumping. You're like, that's awesome. Are you gonna start ignoring your biceps because you don't want that to go away? Right? No,
Right,
you're
right.
gonna keep working that. You know what I mean? If you notice progress, you want to continue to build off that progress. So it's very interesting that if we practice gratitude and all of a sudden we find ourselves in a situation to appreciate the fact that we've built gratitude and we have strong gratitude, right? Why would we ignore that? Why would all of a sudden we say, okay, well, you know, metaphorically, I'm going to put down these weights. I'm going to walk away from this muscle group for a while because I don't want it to go away.
Right.
Very counterintuitive, right? Very counterproductive even. So then, you know, kind of using that to go into what you were talking about as far as how we understand obstacles and how we approach obstacles, right? Building off the metaphor of weightlifting, like once we conquer a certain amount of weight, we don't just stay there.
Right.
We need more. We need more resistance, and we need more practice. You know, and that's where we get into the mental reps of being able to look at a bad situation and understand the good in it. Right. So using gratitude to find opportunities in negative situations.
Right.
One thing that you see with people who are very successful is they have an ability to adapt and to overcome in negative situations and always find opportunities regardless of what's in front of them. But I think that practicing gratitude plays into that a lot. You know, if you say, okay, so for instance, right now, one way I've been actively practicing gratitude these last 2 days is yesterday morning I tweaked my back and just, I don't know exactly what caused it. It's not muscular or anything. It's just it's tightness in my lower back. So kind of limiting what I can do for workouts. So I didn't really train jiu-jitsu hard last night. I haven't been able to do any striking or any lifting or anything today. But where I've been able to practice being grateful for that is now I'm excited because I actually get to try some mobility work that I've been studying, some different stretches and some different movement patterns. And things that are supposed to specifically help alleviate lower back pain, that unless you are experiencing the back pain, you can't really troubleshoot them in a realistic way.
Right.
So that's a great opportunity for me, and I'm really excited about that because now if I practice this, eventually maybe I'll be able to help somebody who's in a similar situation, you know? But that's, I think, a practiced effort of gratitude because I personally haven't always been like that. And I even find myself in certain situations slipping back into a, oh shit, this sucks mindset.
Sure.
And having to force myself to, you know, pick the weights back up and go through those hard reps again to build my ability to be grateful in bad situations, you know?
Yeah, you know, it's we're talking about the mind being a muscle, and you know, and I think one of the practices that kind of umbrellas a lot of these additional thoughts or feelings is just the practice of mindfulness itself, of learning how to be aware of the things that do come into our life. And so when we practice mindfulness, something I think comes up in quite a few of these episodes when we get together. But when we practice mindfulness, we know what the actual, we're more sensitive to the acute or subtle feelings of things like gratitude.
Right.
You know, because it's one thing to just to say thank you or to say, man, I'm grateful for such and such, which is important, but to actually to be able to, whether you visualize it, you know, in your head or whether you feel it right in your chest, you know what I mean, to get accustomed to what gratitude actually feels like, I think is what's going to stay with us, you know, moving forward. And as we try and apply that to every, you know, situation that comes our way.
Right. Which it's very interesting because you say understanding what gratitude feels like, you know, which when I first started studying gratitude, you know, that was a weird concept. Like, what does it feel like to be grateful?
Right.
Well, it should feel like happiness, right? Not always.
Right.
You know, it's definitely a unique and individual feeling. You know, it's its own feeling. Being grateful for something is its own feeling, and I think different times we might experience in different ways. You know, whether it's cerebral or whether it's, you know, kind of like deep in your chest and your heart. You know,
Sure.
and sometimes it'll resemble happiness or joy, but I think probably the most intense time I've ever felt gratitude or truly recognized the power of gratitude was in negative situations. Was the feeling of, okay, this is bad, right? Say like I don't have money to pay my mortgage this month. I don't have money to pay my rent this month. Or, you know, and I mean, this was even 2 months ago. I was scrounging for grocery money one week, and I was like, shit, this is tough. And then it hit me that I was genuinely and deeply grateful for the experience. Not that I love being without money, or not that I love feeling the stress or the you know, the anxious feelings of I'm not going to be able to eat or pay my rent. I'm going to have to ask to borrow money or something like that. But the fact that I was okay, that I knew that I was alive, and that I knew very truly that this was temporary, you know, and that's how I practice gratitude in that situation, is that I was able to remind myself and appreciate the fact that this is temporary.
Right.
So regardless of what the day brings you, it's what you have and it's what you have to deal with, and it doesn't last forever.
Right.
And I was grateful for that reminder, you know. So in that capacity, I was able to practice gratitude and really able to kind of understand, kind of like you said, how unique it is and how different it is maybe than any other feeling.
I mean, imagine that though. What power, you know, to utilize your weaknesses as strengths, or to see the ability to, well, I mean, to use your weaknesses as strengths. You know, put you almost in an unlimited position to move forward. You know, when I try to really understand what gratitude felt like for me, you know, one of my practices daily would be, you know, when I'd make my run up to the park in the morning, and I'd finish up at the top of the hill with that beautiful view. That's what I sit with. I look at the view and I try and breathe it in, and I say every time, and I say thank you, and I say it out loud, and probably a whole bunch of times. And there have been people that have walked up those stone steps, and probably heard me talking to myself like a crazy person, but that's okay. But for me, being able to take in that view and feel what that feels like to me. So whether I am just connecting those two things, that view and that feeling, and being like, oh, hey, this is what gratitude feels like. But either way, I'm able to take that with me. And now when I approach any other situation, that's the feeling that I'm looking for when I say, hey, I'm grateful for this, you know? And for me, I kind of feel it right in my chest. It's not so much as cerebral as it is, I want to almost say an openness, you know? Feel a little bit more open or receptive to just what's happening right now in the very moment.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it, and I think that is a very concise, and that might be a more universal experience. I think is that openness and that connection to the moment, you know. And I think so maybe the cerebral feeling comes from practicing it. So
being mindfulness of practice, absolutely.
And sometimes I think you said earlier, like sometimes it's just going through the motions. Sometimes if you want to get good at gratitude, right, it's just like everything else. You know, when you're here boxing and stuff, you want to get good at boxing. Sometimes you just have to sit there and throw your jab, throw your jab, throw your jab, you know, until eventually you don't have to think about it and you feel it. So, you know, gratitude's the same way. Gratitude is sometimes thinking about it, making yourself say thank you, making yourself say thank you, and then eventually you don't think about it anymore. And when you say thank you, you catch yourself sometimes and you just realize that it's coming from a feeling. It's coming from a reaction. You've built that habit, you know. and I kind of told you a little bit before, but one of the most powerful things that you do, one of the things that every single time you do it, it affects me in a real way. And I get that feeling of gratitude every time you say it, is when we part ways after training, after a conversation, whatever, anytime we, happen to chat here or there, you always say, I appreciate your time. And which I mean, it's automatic for you. It's very genuine, it's very natural, and it feels very heartfelt. And I get a feeling of gratitude when you say that to me, which it in turn makes me thankful, even more thankful for the experience, and I recognize gratitude, and so I have a cerebral moment that's caused from the feeling, where I'm very conscious and I'm very aware of it, I'm very connected to it. So again, so now I become even more grateful, and then if I say thank you, I'm sure that in some way that you're like, oh, he said thank you, you're grateful.
Sure.
And then we're just in this back and forth of kind of like infinite gratitude.
Sure, in which is exactly where you want to be. It first started standing out to me back when I read this book called The Celestine Prophecy.
Okay.
And it was just kind of a written out manual of the steps that we could take to help us become self-aware and self-empowered. Okay. And they made great points when they said that really everything is based on a transference of energy between people. We feed off of energy. We live off of energy. And he's like, us as human beings, at the lower levels, we take energy from each other. We're almost like energy vampires. For a good example, think of a bully.
Sure.
Where they how they feel about themselves, right? Maybe a lower sense of self-worth or confidence or energy, essentially. And how do bullies get that energy? They go and they take it from someone, whether it's verbally, whether it's through violence. Sure. And I could certainly go on and on about in different ways in which energy transference happens between us. But they said, in order to help break that cycle and make us not dependent on the negative ways that we pull energy from others, the art and the practice of appreciation and gratitude is something that we can self-create that allows us to, because once you appreciate something, like, it feels good, and I appreciate that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I got in my head that for me it's all about the view. I say it probably a million times. It's all about the view, because that's where I learned how to feel what appreciation feels like.
Sure.
But they said once you can understand and fully feel gratitude for whatever you have right now, whatever position you're in right now, that is what's it called? That now you can give out energy with never losing it. Right. Because it comes right back to you. Right. You're self-creating it. You're no longer using anyone else, whether it's people or drugs or food, you know what I mean, for these type of energies that we learn to build within ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know if that sounds a little abstract or not, but to me it changed my whole outlook, my whole demeanor, and my approach to people and just my own situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, abstract, sure, but I think it's something that everybody can relate to, because I think when you're spending time around a person or people or in situations that aren't fulfilling, and around people that don't understand or can't appreciate gratitude or appreciation or thankfulness or anything like that, I think it feels very draining and it feels very tiring.
Sure.
And I am sure I know I've said it about people before, and I'm sure at some point somebody said it about me. Mm-hmm. And something that I would like to remedy. But I've been a tiring person to be around before. Mm-hmm. If I'm in a miserable mood, if I'm letting my feelings control my actions, things like that, like just being a tiring person to be around. But that kind of makes sense of it, because I'm taking energy from people. I'm physically tiring them out because I can't provide any energy to the situation. Or I'm depleted of energies, right? Or positive energies, or that kind of like self-replicating energy, you know what I mean? But through practicing gratitude and stuff, and then you've met those people that when they come in, they just bring the energy level up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think largely, I would have to believe that those are people that practice gratitude. There's good people to be around. You know,
Sure.
that something like they always have a smile on their face. You know, and that doesn't mean that everything's always going great for them, but they always turn their mind to producing energy.
Yeah.
And
Just a positive disposition.
yes. So no, that absolutely makes sense. And one thing that's really interesting too is anytime I read and study thought patterns, so whether it be like PTSD, drug addiction, depression, but then vulnerability and gratitude and anything that you actively turn your mind towards, you can teach yourself to build neural pathways. And they've done studies that show that it actually changes the physiology of your brain.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, whether it's kind of spiritual or whatever, but the energy you produce, I think, is a result of how your brain is working.
Right.
You know, and so putting in these reps, and again, it's a muscle. You can change the physiology of your brain. You're not just stuck in that pathway. You might take a while to cultivate new habits and build new pathways and stuff, but it does have an actual traceable, tangible, physical response in your brain, and that's how it becomes a habit, it becomes a pattern.
Sure.
You know? So turning your mind towards producing energy through repetition and through conscious thought, you can actively make your brain default to that kind of mode.
You know, and for the longest time, and you're 100% right, and I think there's a beauty in that because often, you know, these conversations are probably, or would have been probably considered more spiritual, like you were saying.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, and in a sense, that's kind of limiting because maybe not everyone A follows the same religion, B follows religion at all.
Sure.
Does it make it any less true though? I don't think that it does.
Right.
But now you're lost. You know, you have a large amount of people who are lost on the conversation because they don't speak and use the same spiritual terminologies. But science has been actually breaking down and showing proof of all of these things. You know, I remember reading stuff on meditation that it strengthens gray matter. You know, and you know, practicing these mindfulness and the meditations, and that they see that these how it changes the synapse that work together, and strengthens gray matter. I don't know if I already said that, but now
that's how much it strengthens.
That's how much it strengthens. Yeah, I told you it's a long weekend that I'm very grateful for, but I am tired. But now, you know, we can all start having these conversations and sharing in our lingo. You know what I mean? And whichever way we speak about it, because we're finding that it's true no matter what.
Right.
You know, and I think that's, I don't know, I just think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, spirituality aside or religion aside or whatever your beliefs are, I mean, the science is there.
Right.
So, and I mean, some people don't believe in the science, but I think a vast majority of people would. You know?
Sure.
So we've been talking a lot about how important it is to practice gratitude. We've talked a lot about the effects that it can have. I think finding gratitude and practicing gratitude is something that's really helped me learn to understand my depression, to appreciate my depression if I'm feeling anxious, stuff like that. So just practicing gratitude, I think, has had a huge effect on my overall life. But like I said, right now I'm very genuinely happy with everything that's going on. So it's important, obviously, and it has beneficial effects, right? So how do we practice gratitude? How do we get good at practicing gratitude? Right? Seems like, okay, well, you know, I'm grateful for things, right? And honestly, it can be as simple as that to start.
Sure.
So Rachel recommended to me, this was actually probably almost 2 years ago, I was having a rough time, and she was like, at the end of the night, before you go to bed, list 3 things you're grateful for that day, right? And when it started out, it was a lot of, well, I'm grateful that I have a bed to sleep in, I'm grateful that my belly's full, and I'm grateful that I'm tired and can go to sleep right now, you know, and just little things like that. And so that's a very, so I mentioned it before, that's a very cerebral gratitude, Because even if I didn't feel it, I made myself go through those motions, and I made myself say out loud before I went to bed 3 things I was grateful for. Eventually, what that manifested into was almost a subconscious recognition of things throughout the day I was grateful for. So instead of just waiting until the end of the day, one morning maybe I'd hop in my car, I'd start it up, and the gas tank would be full. I'd be like, I'm grateful I filled up my gas tank last night on the way home, and I don't have to do it now.
Right.
And then, that started happening, and it started becoming habitual. It started becoming a habit. And then, so it goes from practice effort into habit, into reaction, into just part of who you are. Then came the task of understanding how to find gratitude in negative situations. That was a little bit more difficult, but what I used to do when I started focusing on that was say, okay, well, I'm grateful for this, again, like whatever example, maybe my car wouldn't start that morning. I'm grateful for this because my car started yesterday, or I'm grateful for this because I know it's not always going to be this way,
Right.
which I think when you start drawing comparisons like that, I think it actually detracts from the actual gratitude of the moment. Saying I'm grateful for my back hurting because I know it's not always going to hurt. I'm grateful for my back hurting because other people can't even feel their legs.
Right.
I'm grateful for my back hurting because other people are quadriplegic. Instead, so you detract. So it's gratitude without comparison.
Right.
Is something I started learning to practice. Is I'm grateful. Like I said earlier, I'm grateful for my back hurting because I can practice certain things right now. I'm grateful for my car not starting because now I know that I'll be more mindful of the circumstances that led up to this. So whatever the negative situation is, understanding the gratitude in that situation for what it is, instead of saying, I'm grateful for this food because there are people in third world countries that get what the fuck, there's homeless people in this city that can't eat. You know what I mean? Saying I'm grateful for this nourishment because I can eat.
Right. Instead of negating it,
Right. Right.
And that's interesting. And and I can tell that you have a history of practicing this because just like everything else, there are levels to it.
Sure.
And and to move along through the levels and get to a point where now you get to that certain obstacle where you're like, man, I'm grateful for it. I feel like I'm grateful for it, or I say I'm grateful for it.
Right.
But I'm negating the instance. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is that actually beneficial to me right now? And that's a way that I've never. That's a different perspective that I haven't shared before. So I think that's real interesting. And you said, how do we start? Not to backtrack too far, but you're like, what's a good way to start being grateful? And I think it is starting small like that.
Yeah.
Like those lists, or like for me, it was starting with what was familiar.
Sure.
And to understand what grateful felt like and to build on that.
Yeah. And I mean, not to beat the metaphor to death, but even the metaphor of weightlifting, when you start, not that everybody does this, but you shouldn't start with heavy weights, until you're familiar with the movement.
Right.
You're not going to go in and bench press 250 pounds your first day.
Right.
Start with a light weight, start with 100 pounds, familiarize yourself with the movement.
Right.
And then as you find that you can do it easily, then you can add more weight, then you can try more difficult things, then you can start drawing abstractions of what gratitude is, you know what I mean? And then, the more you practice it, you kind of realize that you're more capable of what you ever thought you were.
Sure.
And you kind of touched on this at the beginning, but it gives you almost an invulnerable feeling, kind of this feeling of infinite power. Like I can handle anything because I know that I can find a way to be grateful for whatever I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
What's the ultimate fear in life is dying. And if I die, what do I give a shit about anything anymore?
Right.
You know what I mean? Whether it's an actual afterlife or not. I mean, I'll hopefully, my spirit will be grateful in the afterlife if it's there.
Right.
I'm grateful that I don't have a body anymore.
Right.
But other than that, I mean, there's no reason not to be grateful for exactly what you have right now.
Yeah.
And like I said, even at the beginning, and I think for a lot of people it manifests as well. It's not always going to be this way. It's temporary. You know, it's ephemeral. It's could be worse. Other people have it worse and stuff. And I think that's a legitimate place to start. I'm not saying that that's bullshit gratitude. I think that's genuine gratitude. For me, that felt very cerebral. You know, and again, very disconnected from the moment.
Right.
But now understanding gratitude as being connected to the moment and okay, what lessons can I learn? How can I benefit from this situation? How can I grow as a person? How can I work towards my goals regardless of what's going on?
Sure.
And something I started doing probably about 2 weeks ago, kind of building off this mindset, was so it's the time of year where everybody's getting sick right now, and I was tired and I was sick, and somebody asked me how I was doing, and I was like, man, you know, I'm tired, my body aches, it's cold, it was cold in the gym, you know, and just everything was just, you know, not great and peppy and stuff, and I realized that I gave a list of 3 or 4 things that were all negative, and I was like, ugh, I don't like that. I don't like the way that felt, you know. So I was very aware of it, and the very next text message I sent was, "But I'm happy to be here." And I've started. If I feel like if I give more than 1 or 2 things that are less than, you know, stellar, I'll make sure and I'll be very aware. And again, it's a very cerebral practice right now, but I'm happy to be here. Like, you know, this morning I was a little tired, back's a little sore, but I am very genuinely happy to be here. And it's a feeling that kind of rises below the surface a lot. But I think people can tell when you are genuinely happy to be around, when you're grateful for what's going on and stuff.
Absolutely.
But I want to make myself more aware of it too, and make that the forefront of my mind. And because you can have bad things going on, you can be hurt, you can be poor, you can be hungry, you can be sad, you can be tired, you can be all of these things, but you can still genuinely be grateful to be alive and have what you do have. You know?
Yeah, I mean, just the awareness is clutch. You know, catching yourself right toward the end. Not only, I bet that after you did that, just that one time, that the rest of your day you were more conscious, just in general, about you know, about you know, your appreciation.
Big time, absolutely, man. Absolutely,
that's a good catch.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, you know, I think the mental reps are important. So you said when you get to the top of the hill there at Thompson Park and you look out and you see the view and stuff, you'll say thank you, you'll say it out loud. And maybe the first time you did it, you probably felt a little silly.
Yeah.
You know, a similar experience I had. I was down at the beach one day, and I think it was late spring last year when it was like, the snow was kind of first gone and we were first able to, you know, kind of even go to the beach. And I went down there and I took my guitar and I sat by myself and I just had a pen and a paper and I wrote a little bit and I played a little bit, and just an absolutely gorgeous, just this amazing day. And it was chilly, and as the sun started to set, I was the only one that was down there, you know, and that just this amazing, awesome experience. And as I went to leave, I walked to the boardwalk and I turned around and I just looked out at everything that was there, and I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I felt so overwhelmed with gratitude. And the only thing I knew how to do is a habit I built here at the gym, but I just gave like a bow.
That's awesome.
You know, and to what? Just to nature, to the experience. And I felt so compelled to express this gratitude that I had to do something to show it. And just honor the way I was feeling, honor nature, just appreciate everything that was there.
And that's your personal expression.
Yes.
That's how you connected. Yeah. That's a great example. Great example.
You know, and it was entirely just for me, because I wanted to express that to the universe, to whatever, you know. So that kind of links into this notion that I draw so many parallels from martial arts, from training and stuff, and that's kind of the reason that I bow when I come on the mats and bow when I go off the mats, is to just express my gratitude for what is here. You know, not necessarily the physical things that are here, but the spirit of the gym and the camaraderie that we have here, and our ability to train and to better ourselves as human beings, really. You know, And so that, you know, again, that's a feeling of gratitude to me, you know, and that's my physical expression of it. But it's something that I'm very aware of. Every time I bow on the mats and bow off the mats, I'm very aware that I'm actively expressing gratitude. And it, you know, just a small little thing that cultivates that feeling in my mind and in my body, you know.
You know, and I just love the symbolism because it's universal. You know, we use language, English language. I say thank you, or when I say appreciate you, but it could just be communicated in so many different ways,
right? And
it still means the same exact thing,
right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like you said, I mean, we bow to our partners, we express gratitude to our partners through physical gestures. You know, thank you for either what, you know, especially sparring. Like, thank you for what's about to happen, or thank you for, you know, what we just went through. Thank you for helping me grow as a person. You know, and it's a physical expression of that gratitude. You know what I mean? And that, you know, that breaks a language barrier. You know, it's a physical expression. Everybody understands that as an appreciation or a sign of respect or gratitude. You know, and even so, like you said, even like saying thank you. One way I've implemented that is into accepting compliments from people when somebody says thank you for something, or they say like this is something nice about you. This is something you're really good at, or this is something you did well, or this is a way that you've affected me. A lot of times, I think we feel compelled to downplay that and say, "Oh no," because we feel like it's an expression of humility. And a way I've kind of shifted my mind and forced myself to start just simply saying thank you to somebody is, I feel when somebody offers you a compliment, they're expressing gratitude. And by downplaying that, you're not honoring their expression of gratitude. So they're trying to better themselves through an expression of gratitude, and you're downplaying that, and you're not honoring it. So I forced myself to just say thank you first. Say thank you first, and then I can say something, you know, like thank you. I feel like that's a very kind thing for you to say. And again, we end up in that reciprocal kind of endless loop of gratitude. Like you said something nice to me, thank you, that was a very kind thing to say. Well, thank you for saying that was kind. Well, thank you for thanking me for, you know, and then and eventually you just shut the fuck up.
Right.
Just let it go.
Part ways.
And just understand that you're both grateful for that, But yeah, it made it much easier for me to understand, you know, and even understanding a compliment as an expression of gratitude, you know, is, I think, significant.
Sure. Yeah, you know, and that's where the whole I appreciate your time, you know. You know, because specifically, at least in my mind, the value in time is the most valuable for me because it's the most, because we don't have forever. You know what I mean? We don't have all of it. So, you know, I work to be more specific when I say thank you or I appreciate. Because that's, you know, that's what I feel the most value in. So that's what I try and share.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Slurry, always popping in, brother. Thank you. I know we're both grateful for you always popping in and throwing us a little what's up.
Absolutely. I'm grateful for OCL practice a little bit later this afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to rip it off.
Yeah.
It's been a minute, man. I got a lot of things to say.
Yeah. You guys got some stuff coming up, next week, right? Next Wednesday you guys are playing with Manic Mind?
Is that next Wednesday?
Thanksgiving Eve, right?
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
We'll be at the Time Warp night before Thanksgiving. One of the biggest nights in the city.
Yeah.
We're getting prepped tonight for it though. Yeah, it's gonna be dope. We got some new stuff. But I'm just like happy just to get back and jam, even for practice, man. I'm pumped about that.
For sure. You guys been writing some new stuff.
Yeah, well, we've more so been recording. I've been writing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I've been writing, you know, some new things, but we're trying to get everything that we've had for a while down on wax, so we can kind of, you know, give it out to the world and then focus on the new stuff. So it's a process, but, you know, I'm grateful for all of it.
Grateful for the process. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it's funny because saying shit like that, you know, might sound cheesy at first, but I mean, shit, it's a default way to feel. Like everything that happened. And I mean, being busy and life being hectic, and you guys have so much music that you got to get down to record. That's awesome. That's great. That shit is just a sign that you guys are working and growing and testing yourselves and stuff, you know. So you know.
And you know, because so often I'll get frustrated, maybe because it's not moving at the same speed, and or we don't have the same schedule, or we're not on the same page, and then I got to take a step back and be like, but I got people to rock with. You know what I mean? I got to deal with a bunch of people, but I got people to rock with when it comes down to it. And it settles me again. So whatever speed it needs to be, it'll be. And
so trusting in the process, but being grateful for the process too.
Being grateful for it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, and that's, I mean, one way I started understanding what feels like setbacks in martial arts, or feels like plateaus in training and stuff like that, is if everything's easy, if you never run into obstacles, you're not progressing.
Right.
So every obstacle you run into, it's easy to be grateful for, because you know it's a sign of progress. You know, if you're not running into obstacles, you're not moving. You're sitting still.
Sure.
You know, if you're moving forward, you're going to run into some shit. You know, which is just it's all awesome. It's all gratitude, man. It's just
it is, and you know, and it might sound cliche at first, but I feel like, you know, if most of you guys have probably caught on to the majority of our videos that we put out there, but you know, if you're just tuning in for the first time, go hit the YouTube page. Make sure you guys watch all these videos all the way through, because like the similarities and the things that connect, like there's just a deeper meaning to the cliche than just the cliche. You know, it's really there, man. It's really there. I promise.
And man, and so for everybody that is tuning in, that has tuned in these past couple months, we've been doing this. For everybody that does take the time to listen, to pipe in, to join our conversations and stuff, I feel comfortable speaking for you on this, Quince. We're both immensely grateful for you guys tuning in, giving us feedback, joining us on these conversations, and giving us a platform where we feel like we're comfortable having these conversations and stuff.
Absolutely.
Too. I always enjoy the time, man, and for you guys to show us the love, it's very, very much appreciated on our end.
Absolutely. So we appreciate y'all for tuning in. Next week.
See you guys next week.
Later.